Welcome back to Sport on 7. 30 minutes of sport for you every single week. I'm Tom Bushell. You can get me on Twitter if you like. It's at Tom Bushell UAE. Now, one of the big stories this week has been Real Madrid's new deal with Emirates Airline. Emirates will be Real's shirt sponsors for the next 5 years in a deal reported to be over $100 million per season. It also means that Real Madrid are likely to play in Dubai early in 2014 too, in the Dubai Football Championships. More on that a little bit later on with Chris McCarty. Now though, last summer, well, we were pretty spoilt for sports, weren't we? We had the European Football Championships, the Olympics, the Volvo Ocean Race and more. This summer may seem a little quieter, but there is the small matter of a Raw Down Under. 2000 Lions captain Brian O Driscoll has been getting in the mood.
Question number 1. Who was your roommate on the 2001 tour to Australia?
Jason Robinson, Will Greenwood, Johnny Wilkinson, Matt Perry, Martin Williams.
To the nearest 1,000, how many followers do you have on Twitter?
237.
You are actually bang on the money, 237,000.
Thank you.
You've scored 5 tries against 3 different countries. Can you name them?
France has to be one. Australia. Wales. No, it's not Scotland, is it? Scored a hat-trick. Scored a hat-trick against Scotland. Yeah. Oh, it's bad.
You've been picked to the IRB Player of the Year award 3 times. Who has whipped it away from you on those 3 occasions? Times against you, Brian.
Keith Wood, Fabian Galtier, Richie McCaw.
Correct, he's in. Who would win at Scrabble between Paul O'Connell and Keith Wood?
Paul O'Connell.
Why?
Fester talks a good game, but Paulie can back that up.
Who was the referee in the second test in 2001?
I haven't got a clue. It's not, captain.
Which 2 players have toured 4 times with the Lions?
Willie John McBride and Mike Gibson.
How many pages are there in Brian O Driscoll's book, Here in the Centre?
Too many. 290.
How would you pronounce Brian backwards?
Narb.
Correct. And in Will Carling's list of the greatest players of all time, Gareth Edwards was named at number 1. Which number did you appear at?
9, 8, 14, 20, 13? 10. Did I say 9 first?
You said 9 first. You were close.
Close.
You got dibs on yourself.
Yeah, I just have tickets.
Well, Brian O'Driscoll, I'm pleased to say that of the 10 questions, you managed to get 6 correct.
6, okay.
You're up there with Adam Jones, but you're more intelligent than Lewis Moody.
Yes, the Lions will be in action for their 2013 tour Down Under. It all began with that friendly against the Barbars in Hong Kong, but the real test is in Australia as the British and Irish Lions play 3 tests against the Wallabies, plus a number of other games around the country too. Jim Rosenthal and the team are back on OSN this summer to cover the entire tour, so I caught up with the British sports broadcaster to discuss whether the Lions can get their first series win since the 1997 tour of South Africa, Manchester United and the future of English football. Well, Jim, thanks so much for talking to me. Of course, here in Dubai for OSN's coverage of the Lions tour Down Under this summer. It really is going to be a fantastic summer for rugby, isn't it?
It is, Tom, and absolutely delighted to be back in Dubai, leaving the rainy UK and returning here. Huge event this for OSN. I mean, it's amazing. It's a couple of years ago when we started doing the Rugby World Cup, myself and Jerry Guscott and Scott Gibbs weren't quite sure where it was all going to end up, and I think it's one of the most ambitious sporting outside broadcasts that OSN have ever done. And it's great that we start off at the studios in Media City here in Dubai, and then for the 3 tests towards the end of next month, off we go down to Brisbane, down to Melbourne and down to Sydney. And I'm really excited. In an advanced stage, I've never done a Lions tour, so I'm a Lions virgin. It's going to be a first for me.
Well, talking of that Lions tour, of course, a very Welsh-dominated side. Some big names have missed out as well. Chris Robshaw, the England captain, of course. Johnny Wilkinson has ruled himself out. The Lions have lost the last 3 tours. How do you see this one going?
Very, very tough. Very tough, as you point out, that There's always a big brouhaha about the Lions. They'll take 30 or 40,000 fans wherever they go, down to Australia this time round. But in terms of winning series, well, Messrs Gibbs and Guscott were part of the last winning series in South Africa. And it's going to be tough down there. Of course it's going to be tough, and they've only just got together. As soon as the whole squad get together, they're straight on the plane, straight into the humidity of Hong Kong, very little preparation time. You mentioned Robershaw not going. Yep, unlucky. But again, probably the unluckiest, I would think, not to get the trip, but he'll be ready if anything occurs. Johnny Wilkinson, you know, there's still a little feeling that sometime Wilco might be on the plane to Oz, but they haven't won for a long time. I think it's important for the Lions to win this series.
Just a word on Johnny Wilkinson there. He really is a phenomenal talent, isn't he? He's much like the Beckham of rugby, still going, still professional, keeping himself fit, and he's had a great season as well with Toulon.
I'll steal that, by the way, the Beckham of rugby. That's a great description. Great description of him. And he says his body couldn't take it going down under, but he looks in pretty good shape to me. And it's quite interesting from the Wallabies' point of view that I would think they'd inwardly would breathe a bit of a sigh of relief that Wilco hasn't been included so far. I keep saying so far because I wouldn't rule out the possibility of him hopping on a plane if he's fit and well and getting down there.
Well, let's move on to some other sport, of course. So much has happened so far in 2013. Not least Old Trafford, Manchester United, Sir Alex Ferguson retiring. I know, of course, you presented the end-of-season awards. David Moyes in place there. Now, how do you think David Moyes will get on at Old Trafford?
Very much in the image of Alex Ferguson, minus actually the European triumph when he came from Aberdeen to Manchester United. It is a massive job. It's a huge job. I'm slightly surprised he's changed things around as quickly as he has in the backroom staff anyway, particularly with René Moulenstein, a very, very well-respected coach who worked closely with Alex. But he's his own man. He has to do things his own way. Doing those awards, you know, I was just looking across at Alex, and it's almost inconceivable to have Manchester United without Sir Alex Ferguson being there. In fact, people your age, around your age, they were in shock in Manchester United. There was one guy interviewed who said, I had to be sent home from work. My mind just wasn't on it. I couldn't contemplate life at United without Sir Alex. So it's a void. It is a void. But Moyes, I think, will grow into that job.
Ferguson seemed ever so relaxed at those awards as well, which you presented. One great line where he said he didn't go into work the next day after, of course, the end of the season. I mean, he must feel so much more relaxed now that it's out in the open and he can say goodbye to it all. I
think he hated it initially, and he had a scowling face on initially when the news leaked out. It wasn't the way Manchester United would have liked to announce it, that's for sure. But come that awards night, I think the more natural Alex had returned, and actually it was after the parade through the streets and he went to bed, and he, as you well know, he's always first there at the training ground, 7:15 in the morning, and I've never ever known him say A, he slept in, and B, he missed a day at work when they were, and he said his wife Kath was checking he wasn't dead or anything like that.
Staying with football, England, of course, last night at Wembley Stadium, part of the FA 150th anniversary celebrations. They played Ireland at Wembley, a 1-1 draw, of course. It wasn't a particularly inspiring performance from the English national side. Should it be a time to be worried as an England fan?
You know, Tom, at this stage of the season, I think most of the players would like to be here, if I'm honest with you. And they've now on a plane going to Brazil for a friendly, obviously with the World Cup in mind. I almost have very low expectations of England performances in matches like that. Republic of Ireland players that most of them are very familiar with. Didn't surprise me it was a poor game, didn't surprise me it was a 1-1 draw. Where England have to be at their best, and it's a bit of a worry we're not always at our best at that stage. We'll be early next season for those qualifying matches. They're the all-important thing. But it was a pretty drab old game by all accounts, but I don't think too many fans would be that surprised about that. Worried, concerned, I would say, would be more my description of that.
Of course, later on this year, in October, November, we have in the UAE the Under-17 World Cup, which is always a great place to find the real youngsters and the talent at that age. However, England haven't qualified, but neither have Spain and Germany, some big nations which you would expect to be playing in these kind of tournaments. But obviously for England, St George's Park up and running now. Investment is the key, isn't it, to hopefully in years to come be a dominant force, but we could be waiting quite a while.
It will be. It will be, definitely, and that's what everybody said at St George's Park. Don't expect it to happen like that. It's going to be a 10, 15, 20 years before we see the benefits of, if we see it at all, that is. And there's a school of thought that it might be a white elephant, a waste of money anyway. But for me, the biggest thing that has to happen to change English football is to get English players, a higher percentage than 33%, playing in the Premier League. And when that starts moving up, it starts moving up towards the 60s and 60% that you get in Spain, you get in Germany, then I think you'll see a much better England. That too is a long process.
Well, Jim, I have to ask you, even though we're just halfway through the year, just to round off our chat, what would you say is your sporting highlight or moment of 2013 so far?
Sporting moment of 2013, I'll come back to a sort of a personal one, really, and I think it's Manchester United. I think it's Alex Ferguson getting that trophy, leaving Manchester United with a trophy. He might have gone last year if Aguero and City hadn't ruined it in the 94th minute. He might have gone, but I think the beaming look on Alex's face with that trophy will be something I remember 2013 for. So far, I think the sporting highlight is still to come, and I hope I will be right in the middle of it with the Lions in Australia.
Always great to catch up with Jim. Now, Sport on 7 is back in a moment, and we'll be catching up with Chris McCarty to discuss all the local sport this last week, and we'll be looking ahead to the Asian Games as well. We're back in a moment.